Hey friends, how's it going today? I haven't been on the bike in a while because it's been so rainy and stormy here. Today it was supposed to be a little sunny, but look at the clouds in front of me there. Doesn't look that sunny to me. Weather here in Texas is very unpredictable. Just last week we had a massive flood here that unfortunately killed some people and damaged all kinds of roads, buildings, etc. It's just horrible, horrible, horrible. I can actually see the rain falling out there in the distance. Close the lid here. Today's video is about what bike is right for you, the BMW RS, the GS, or the RT. I'm making this video just because I saw on, I believe it was Facebook, someone posting about their new to them, I guess, RS or something, and all the modifications they made to it to make the bike comfortable to them, including large touring screen, tubular bars, bar risers, new seat, all kinds of adjustments, new foot peg adjusters. And I just thought to myself, you know, I don't know, it just seems like a lot of people are buying the wrong bike. I don't know. Each bike, the RS, the GS, and the RT, have very specific missions, and you know, you should really investigate each bike, try them out, ride them, make sure you're comfortable, and if you're not, you know, choose something else. This is just a personal choice. It's again, the looks are subjective and all that good stuff, but I just don't see the point of buying an RS and modifying it so much to suit your needs when there's bikes that BMW makes that will check off most of the boxes you're looking for. So the two main things I see as a deciding factor, one is looks. I mean, you got to ride the thing around. Do you like the way it looks? And again, that's very subjective. Some people are repulsed by the bulbous nature of the RT fairing. Some people are repulsed by the new GS headlight. Some people are repulsed by etc., etc. So first off is, you know, get the bike that you look at and double take. You know, after you buy it and you park it in the parking lot, you walk away from it and you got to look back at it and go, damn, that's a good looking bike. And again, that's going to be different for everybody. So that's the first factor right there. Second one is price. I mean, you might love the way the BMW RT looks, but you can't afford it. You don't want, or you just don't want to spend that much money for a motorcycle. So then there's, you know, obviously alternatives. You can go to other brands and stuff like that. But the point here is, and what this video is going to focus on, is those three bikes, what their missions are, and who should be looking at buying those. So this video is going to be for people that most likely have not yet purchased one of these bikes. They're in the market, they're looking, they're trying to make that decision. If you go online, there's so many videos about how wonderful the GS is, and of course the GS is the most popular bike in the BMW lineup. Then you're going to find a bunch of videos on how wonderful the RT is, and then you're going to find a bunch of videos, a lot of them are from me, about how wonderful the RS is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over some of the stats of each bike and just talk a little bit about, you know, who should be buying this bike or who should be looking at these bikes. I will say that the RS is overlooked a lot for certain people because the GS is just so dominant, and you know, you're going to have friends maybe that have a GS or friends that have an RT and kind of encourage you to go down that road. But when you look at your riding style and what you're going to be using the bike for, in some cases the RS is going to be the perfect fit for you, and in other cases it's not, obviously. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to go over each one and talk about pros and cons and who should be looking at these bikes. So let's jump into it. All right, friends, we're here at Ride Now Power Sports in Austin, Texas. Help me out with this kind of comparison. I'm going to use my RS, and then there's a brand new RT on the show floor and a GS. So I'm going to sit on all of them so you can see what I look like on these. I'm 5'8" with a 30-inch inseam, and we'll go from there. Okay. Again, I'm 5'8", 30-inch inseam. Okay, so this is what I look like on the bike. So my feet are almost flat. Just a little bit shy of flat-footing this. And this would be kind of my riding position. So it's a lot more straight up than the RS. I do feel like I'm leaning forward just a little bit. I think because I've got shorter arms, so I think for me, totally sitting up straight and having the handlebars would be right here for me. So I'm gonna lean forward just a little bit to grab these. But this is a comfortable position with, for shorter riders especially, with your feet being pretty much flat-footed. If I lean the bike to the left just a little bit, I'm totally flat-footed. And the other foot's on tippy toes. This is a heavier bike. I think it's about 100 pounds heavier than the RS and the GS. So you do feel that weight. When I lifted this off of the kickstand, you do feel it. So it is a heavier bike to deal with. So you might have some concerns with, riding it in a parking lot, slow speed. But the police do an amazing job at slow speed skills on these. So that shouldn't be a factor if you practice and get used to the weight and get used to the bike. These boxers are lower center of gravity, and they usually are very easy to ride. But that is the brand new R1300 RT, which they just got in here the other day. So America gets these a lot later than most, compared to the European market. So this is the first time I'm actually sitting on one and seeing one in person. I'll make a separate video about this, but I just don't want to go into too much detail on this. So let's move on and check out the GS. Okay, so here we got the R1300 GS Adventure. So this is the bigger version. This is quite a bit heavier than the regular GS and a very high seat. So let me jump on this. Okay, for those that don't know, when you get a heavy bike, turn the handlebars this way. It's a lot easier to pick the bike up off the stand. Okay. I believe these come with like 30, I'll put it on the screen, 32-inch or 34-inch seats, something like that. Now you can see I'm on my tippy toes on both feet here. This would be kind of my riding position. So in this one, I feel like I'm sitting up a little bit straighter, and I'm not reaching as far for the handlebars. Handlebars are much wider though, to give you that leverage. But that's what this is like. So if you're a shorter rider like me, again 5'8", 30-inch inseam, this would be probably the most intimidating of the three, just because of the seat height. And not being able to put, my feet flat down on the deck. Anyone 5'10" or more, if you got a 32, 33-inch inseam, not a problem at all. In fact, this bike is kind of more made for taller riders. But plenty of short people are riding these, and once you get used to the weight and how the characteristics of the bike and how it rides, not a problem. I've ridden these before quite a few times. Not a problem at all, and they are quite comfortable. So again, that'd be about my riding position. I feel my leg is not as bent on especially the new one. I don't know the exact differences between the 1250 RT and the 1300 RT in terms of peg position and all that. I've just heard that the newer RT is a little bit more sporty. So that one, I felt my leg was tucked back a little bit more than this one. I feel I'm a little bit more closer to 90 degree almost. And if I had a taller, longer leg maybe. So that leg position feels a little bit more comfortable. And reaching for the bars with my shorter arms, I'm not, if I was completely straight up and down, I'd be about here. So you can see I'm just moving back maybe an inch. And that probably could be rectified if I really wanted to. I could probably get some kind of bar riser that does move the bars back a little bit, but I don't think that would be necessary. I feel quite comfortable. So I think just sitting on the bikes, I think this one is probably for the rider probably the most comfortable. And remember, in this one you can stand up too. Here, let's put this back down on the stand. So you can stand up on these bikes. That's what they're made to do when you're going off-road. And standing up on this is very comfortable. I still have the handlebars. When I stand up on my bike, when I get really tired, I have to lean way forward to reach those kind of pseudo clip-ons to actually, you know, I'm like kind of like this. So there you go. Okay guys, sorry about that. I had to move the show into the garage. It was way too windy outside. My little tripod with the camera that's sitting over there now almost fell over a couple times out in the parking lot, so moved it here into the garage. So this is my 2020 R1250 RS, and this is the other bike we're comparing the GS and the RT to. I've done nothing to this bike in terms of the ergonomics other than I got this Sargent seat, because the seat that came with this bike, after about an hour and a half, my butt would end up going numb in different places, and it just was troublesome. So that seat was a little higher than this one by about 1.5 inches, I think. So you can see now that I'm pretty much flat-footed on this bike. With the stock seat, I was kind of on the balls of my feet a little bit. So I'm much more closer to being flat-footed on this bike. Now let me put it on the stand. And it has these kind of pseudo clip-ons. They're not, you know, they're kind of stuck in here and clipped on. They're a little lower, they're on an angle. So this is my riding position. Because the seat is a little lower, excuse me, my legs do get kind of squished up a little bit. On longer rides, this leg's okay. My left leg here on the side, in the calf muscle here, and in my knee joint, I'll start getting sore if I'm on the bike for too long. So this is not even close to being 90 degrees, which would be like here. And as far as the handlebars are concerned, I've got to lean forward a little bit. So this is my riding position, pretty much. So if you want to be straight up, I'm about here. And let's see, the handlebars are not here. So as you can see, this riding position is a lot more sporty than the RT and the GS. And before I showed you, I stood up on the GS, so I can stand up on this bike. But you can see I have to lean way forward to kind of have control and tuck my knees into the tank here to actually have some control of the bike. But when I do this on the road, I don't do it for very long because it is not a very good position to be in. Whereas the GS, when you stand up, you're more like this. You know, with your hands here on the handlebars, maybe a little wider, because the handlebars I think are a little wider on the GS. And then you're standing more upright and it feels quite comfortable. This, you're kind of leaning over the front of the bike to some degree. So again, these three bikes all have a mission. This one is mine, so I have the most experience with this one, and I would not, at this point, trade this bike for a GS or an RT, because my riding style and what I do with this bike is basically within a 5 to 6 hour radius of my house. That's where I ride this. And so I like to take this into the twisties. I like to go out into, you know, central Texas hill country and ride on all the back roads. this bike, like all the Boxers, the center of gravity is quite low. So this bike, I think more so than either of the other bikes, just flicks around so easily compared to like an inline 4 or bigger bike. Even though this is a 36 pound bike, it's quite nimble. I must say, all the other bikes I've test rode, even some of the smaller ones that are 400s or 500 cc's are not as flickable as this one. This one is just goes all over the place. It's really cool. The other cool thing about these Boxer engines on all three bikes is that the engine obviously sticks out and is in the wind. So you're getting a constant flow of air over the cylinder heads, which cools them down or keeps them at a reasonable temperature. So in the summertime, when you come up to a red light and you're sitting at a red light, you're not just getting doused with heat on your inner thighs and the rest of your body from like a traditional V-twin or an inline 4, which typically run a lot hotter. So that in itself is I love that. The torque on these Boxers is amazing, and it's like, what I like to say, it's like real world power. So like from 0 to 80 miles an hour, this bike is just amazing. Pulls, you can feel the G-force when you crank on that throttle and take off. It pushes you back into the pocket here, and it takes off. Whereas, you know, like an inline 4 or traditional kind of configuration for a sport bike, they have to rev a much higher RPM before you get into that realm of, you know, speed. So this is going to be a lot quicker, kind of off the line, and have that like people say tractor pull, just like wham, just pull. Whereas, you know, an inline 4, you're going to have to kind of get the tack up there, the revs going, where it enters into, you know, 11,000, 12,000 RPMs, and then the bike will scream. It's going to go a lot faster than this. This bike will top out probably around 140, 145 miles an hour. Whereas, you know, like an S1000 R BMW with a tune and all that stuff, you're getting closer to 200 miles an hour. And if you do anything to the engine, you could easily get those sport bikes over 200 miles an hour. Don't need to go that fast on the street, quite frankly. I know people like to do that on the highway and go crazy, but for me, this bike for me lives 0 to 100 miles an hour, something like that, and it's a lot of fun. But again, each one of these, RS, RT, GS, all have their special missions, and I just want to make sure that you investigate enough to make sure you match what you're going to actually do with the bike to buy the right bike. So for example, the GS, it's talked about a lot that about 50, anywhere from 50, depends who you talk to, anywhere from 50% to 70% of all GSs purchased never touch dirt. They're just on the highway, on the roads, on the pavement, and that 50% or more or less of the riders actually go off into the dirt and on the dirt roads and gravel and all that stuff. And the GS is an adventure bike. It's supposed to go out into the dirt and on the road and be kind of a best of both worlds. So for me, the GS, I don't like the way it looks. So it's a subjective thing. I would never buy one just because I don't really, it's not terrible. I just think this looks a lot better. And I'm more into looks for what I do. I want to look at my bike and say, well, that's a good looking bike. Now other people might look at my bike and say, nah, not for me, which is fine. But the GS, I would say, out of all three bikes, probably has the best kind of jackknife profile. I mean, the jack of all trades. It can go in the dirt, go on the gravel, go through little things of water, street, highway. You can tour with it. People load those things up with all kinds of bags and whatnot. It can do a lot. And if that's what you're into, going on tours, going off, road, going camping, GS is a great bike. But if you're looking at riding 2 up, where you're going to have a passenger, and you're gonna do lots of highway miles, and you're interstate traveling in America or Europe or wherever you are. So you're going from, you know, Texas, you're gonna ride up to New York or ride over to California and across like 3 or 4 states and do, you know, 1,000, 2,000 miles. The RT all day. I mean, it's got massive wind protection. It's about 100 pounds heavier than this bike and the GS, and it's going to be a lot more stable at higher speeds. So if you're on the freeway doing 85 for 2 hours straight, it's going to be a lot smoother. This bike and the GS tend to, once you get over, you know, 75 to 80 miles an hour, you're going to get some vibration in the bike. So it's not as comfortable long distance on the freeway, these two bikes compared to the RT. Now, if you ride like I do, now I certainly know people that take these. This is in the sport category on BMW's website, but it is a sport tourer, so it is meant to be a bike that you could tour with. As you see, I didn't get the BMW bags just because I don't need that much room. These do expand, so I can fit a lot in these. I just bought these for, you know, mostly for my camera equipment when I go out and gonna make a video and I need to bring things with me. Initially I bought them for a trip I did where I spent the night. So I wanted to make sure I had some kind of baggage where I could put my, you know, change of clothes and all that stuff in. And these weren't that expensive. I love these SW Motec bags, and I also have a tank bag that goes here. Let me get it. So this goes right on here. So I fit a little bit. This is a smaller one, but it has enough room to put a couple water bottles, batteries, whatever you need to put in there. So you can tour in this, but I'm going to be completely honest. And again, this is for me at 5'8", 30-inch inseam, and over 50 years old. That kind of leaned position that you looked at before, I can handle that for about 2 to 2.5 hours. I think the longest I ever did was a 3-hour stretch without stopping. And that's basically because I had to get gas, but my back starts to hurt. You know, I'm not 20 years old anymore. So this, I would say, is the least comfortable of the 3 bikes in terms of ergonomics from the factory. Now I changed the seat, which now the seat is really nice and comfortable for me. And I can do a 2.5, 3-hour stretch. Whereas on the stock seat, it was only 1.5 hours and my butt would start going numb. So I'm very honest about that. This is definitely a bike that you're gonna have to take some breaks. You know, you're gonna have to ride for 1.5 hours, 2 hours, you know, get some gas, stop, get off, stretch your back a little bit if you're older, or if you have, like I have a pre-existing kind of back issue, so I got to do that. Whereas the GS and RT, I could probably ride those for a lot longer and not have to take breaks. But again, I like the way it looks. I like these bars. I didn't do bar risers. I didn't do tubular bars, because then I think it really, that kind of configuration, although it's making the bike a little bit more comfortable, it's really taking away from the aesthetics of the bike and the way the BMW designers made the bike. And I just feel it looks cool this way. I've added this pod. This is also from Sargent. I don't ride 2-up. So again, that was not one of my checklist things when I was looking at motorcycles, because my wife she has no interest at this point to ride on the back. So I got the pod. I can put stuff in here, and I've got a lot of videos about this. But that's another checkbox thing, is like, are you going to ride 2-up a lot? I would definitely go with the RT if you're going to ride 2-up a lot, because it's a lot more comfortable for the passenger on the RT. This is not going to be nearly as comfortable. The GS will probably be a little bit more comfortable than this for a passenger. But again, if you're riding 2-up, RT is good. If you want a sporty kind of feel, a sporty look, this would be the bike for you. And if you want to go off-road a little bit, you want to do some touring, and you may be going to ride 2-up once in a while, the GS might be the bike for you. But then again, you know, do you like the look of the GS compared to this or the RT? So those are things you're going to have to kind of make up your mind on. But let's look at some of the features of the 3 bikes, which will help maybe make a decision for you in terms of pricing, The engine's basically the same, so there's not a whole lot there, but just maybe some small configurations, seat height. If you're a taller guy, as I mentioned earlier in the video, GS is, almost everyone I know that has a GS is taller than me, just because it's a more comfortable bike for someone that's taller. Someone that's 6 foot that got on my bike, especially with this lowered seat, that would not be comfortable. It'd be like, an adult riding like a big wheel or something. So that's another thing. So let's go look at the stats of these three bikes, and I hope that helps you, further make some decisions about your purchase. All right, so I pulled all these stats together for you. The top two there are about the engine, which is exactly the same on all three, so I'm not going to go over that. So what you want to do is just grab a screenshot if you're interested in going over these one by one later on. I'm going to talk about the suspension here, the tires, everything, the wheelbase, all in one shot here. The R1300 RT is designed for touring with a stable chassis and weight distribution ideal for high-speed cruising. It's the heaviest with full fairing and windscreen for excellent wind protection and reduced turbulence. The RT suspension, including telelever, is tuned for comfort and highway stability. The R1300 GS has a taller stance, higher center of gravity, and longer suspension travel, making it less stable at high speeds. It's lighter and more exposed, making it more susceptible to crosswinds. The GS features longer travel for off-road use, but can feel less planted at speed. The R1300 RS has a sportier, more aggressive setup focused on agility, which can feel twitchy on the highway. It's lighter than the RT with sport bike aerodynamics, but less wind protection. The RS uses firmer, sport-tuned suspension for a balance of agility and stability. In case you're not familiar with BMW's telelever suspension system, I'll just go over a few of the advantages and disadvantages. First advantages: reduced braking dive, improved ride comfort, high-speed stability, less fork flex, reduced rider fatigue. Here's some disadvantages: reduced front-end feel, more complex design, heavier setup, limited customization. Okay, so what I did is I went on to BMW's website and I spec'd these three bikes out as best I could to create three bikes that are all for touring. Just basically what I want to show is the price you're paying for these three bikes when you're trying to set them up for touring. So for the GS, there's a lot of mods you can buy and things I didn't add, but one thing I did add was the touring screen. So the price on that one is just over $30,000, almost $31,000. The RT, I didn't add anything because it comes with everything. So that's just over $31,000. And the RS, of course, I had to add a lot of things to it to make it more comfortable. And this is what a lot of people do when they buy the RS. They buy bar risers, tubular bars, get foot pegs, touring screens. Then you have to buy the luggage because it doesn't come with it. So that ends up, and this of course is without tax or any of that other stuff. So you're at around almost $28,000. So if your goal is to tour and go long distance and go on highways and have fun, but you still want a bike that's kind of flickable and fun and has a good motor, you're only saving a few $1,000s by going with the RS with all those tweaks compared to just going for the RT. The RT has everything included and more, and it's more stable and more comfortable for a passenger if you're riding two up. So in the end, there's not a whole lot difference in the pricing here. So I'm just trying to help people out. If you want to tour, go with the RT. If you want to tour but also have flexibility to go off-road a little bit and sacrifice that stability on the highway, GS. If you're going to stay local, you're not going to go too far away, and you don't want to modify the bike, and you want a sporty bike, an aggressive sporty boxer engine, go with the RS and don't modify it. Just keep it stock. All right, well, that was a long video. Sorry about that, but I just wanted to get all that information in there. Please subscribe, thumbs up, share it, all that great stuff. Let me know what you think about this video. What are your choices? What do you think about these three bikes? I know it's talked about quite a bit inside my circles of BMW friends, but let me know in the comments your thoughts. Until then, we'll see you next time. Ride safe, safe journeys. Later.